Good Shepherd Sunday sermon and service. It was just a beautiful worship service this morning. I am grateful for the whole team that made it possible, but in particular for Mother Abby's wonderful children's homily and sermon today. I also want to just take a moment to thank Mandy Schnicker, Skip Foster, and the 12 other members of a team that helped design this logo in concert with Bow Stern, a local company that is not only helping us refresh our logo, they're also helping us build a new website. So you have that to look forward to as well. Very, very soon, there will be a new website for St. John's, which will give us a lot more capability, something that we've discovered the importance of during this time of quarantine, of just how important it is for us to digitally connect with each other. So more on the website at some other later date, but I want you to know that this logo refresh is part of a broader effort to connect you more deeply with God and each other. This is not about a marketing effort. This is not about building a website. What this is ultimately about is connecting you more deeply with God and neighbor. And so I'm so grateful to Skip, Mandy, and the 12 other folks who were the kind of in the trenches doing the work on this. I'm grateful also for our vestry, which provided good feedback on the logo and very enthusiastically approved what you're about to see. And I have to tell you, I got a chance to see the logo revealed in small groups. So, we were getting feedback early in the process. And what was a joy to see is that in every setting, there was genuine enthusiasm and excitement when we unveiled the logo. And we also had some great feedback, which made it even better. So we're just so excited to share it with you today. Before we even get into the logo presentation, I want to remind you that in the season of Easter, the 50 days of Easter, it's traditional for the church to study the Acts of the Apostles, the book of Acts. And remember that the book of Acts is written by St. Luke, the evangelist. It was one volume, if you will, Luke's Gospel and the book of Acts. Later, the church split them into two different books, but it is Luke who writes the Acts of the Apostles. And what you see in the early church is immediately, it's the Holy Spirit who is on the loose. It's the Holy Spirit who is in the driver's seat, if you will, for the church. And what we see is that when the church is gathered by the Holy Spirit, rather than being called a group of Christians, it's interesting that the very first label, the very first name for the church is called the Way. They're known as people of the way. So what does that mean? I think what it means is that the Spirit moving in real people's lives was causing them to be transformed and to live differently, to be living a life oriented around prayer and exploring and deepening faith, living a life of service to others and of boundless generosity. The early people of the way cared for the sick. They cared for the poor. And they came together whether they were rich or poor, slave or free, Jew or Greek. No matter their background, they came together as one team in the body of Christ. And people began to take note of that and said, gosh, these folks are interesting. They live differently. They live a different way. So the very first name for the church was people of the way. And what that suggests to me is that our faith is a way of life. It's a journey home to God. It's not, in the first instance, a religion or a set of beliefs as much as it is a way to live our life, to live differently as we journey home to God. I think many people in our world right now, particularly during this time of uncertainty, many people are seeking a roadmap. Perhaps a better metaphor nowadays would be a navigation system like we have in our cars or on our phones. People are seeking that navigation system for their spiritual life. You know, they hear God calling to them, as Mother Abby said, by name, but they're not quite sure how to take that next step. They're not quite sure how to deepen their life of faith with God and neighbor. And so I want you to know that this logo refresh is much, much bigger than just a marketing effort. Really, what it represents at its very heart is the heart of the Christian life. You're going to see at the center of this new logo the cross. And then around that cross, there are 4 areas that you probably won't actually see today, but I want you to know that this logo redesign is rooted in a navigation system, if you will, for the spiritual life. 4 different areas that we believe at St. John's are crucial to spiritual growth. So I'm just going to list those 4 areas. Mother Abby, I love this. She snuck them into her sermon today. So if you were listening carefully, you will hear these same words. The first is explore. Explore. And why that's important as a way station on this journey is that we are always seeking new ways to connect with God and neighbor. We're always seeking new ways to continue to grow and deepen our life of faith. The second is learn. You know, God, as we all know on this call, has blessed us with minds and imagination. And we know at St. John's that lifelong learning, as it says in the book of Acts, the apostles' teaching and fellowship, lifelong learning is absolutely critical. Whether you're an infant in the nursery at St. John's or you're in your 80s or 90s, you can always be learning. You can always be learning something new. The next one is serve. You know, going to church, worshiping, learning together in Sunday school, all of that is very, very important. But it's just as important, as Deacon Joe reminds us every week, to get out there and serve God's people, to roll up our sleeves and put our faith in action. And the amazing thing is when we go to the Carting Center, when we go to Second Harvest and we serve others, it's quite possible while you're there to learn, to explore. So the cool thing about this model is that all of these areas combine together powerfully. And lastly, center. Center. This is the inward journey towards wholeness. And it's also an affirmation that God is not somewhere out there, exterior to us, but actually that God is inside every human heart. And we meet God not just in all of the busyness and activity of our lives, but also by meeting God in adoration, in silence, in stillness, that we need to center ourselves. And the Lord knows that during this time of quarantine, I think we've all had a lot more time than we typically do to be still, to be quiet, to listen for God in that still, small voice. So again, those 4 areas, explore, learn, serve, and center, are all part of this logo refresh. And the thing that I really want to emphasize to you is that none of these are linear. It's not like you start with explore and graduate yourself up to center, okay? It's not like that. It affirms that any of these 4 actions could be taking place simultaneously, but that they are at the very essence of what it means to follow Jesus on this way home to God. So I think I have said enough. I want to hear now from Mandy and Skip. And again, I'm so grateful. If you could virtually clap for Mandy, Skip, and the team, they have done a fabulous job.
Thank you. I can hear it. I'm seeing a lot of this. Thank you all. We've had a great time doing this. And Dave, thank you for the introduction. It was helpful to know kind of where we're coming from with this. And I also, you know, in addition to the sort of the theology or the, what is behind our logo, we also wanted to kind of talk about why we are doing this right now. I know there's a lot going on right now, and that may be one of the things, like, wow, a logo. This is something that's been a long time coming, as has a new website, as Dave mentioned. We're doing so much on our campus right now to sort of roll out the red carpet to the community, to our people. We really want people to know who we are and how to find us, and be able to use our spaces, building a new ramp to make sure that people can get to us. We're building, we're enhancing our technology and our spaces in Alfred Hall, and so people can hear what we're saying. These are all things that we are preserving our space in the sanctuary. We spent so long last year working on that to make sure that it's there for years to come, and we feel that doing that with our look is just as important, and our website, the way that people come and find us. So many people find us online, and we want them to be able to find us easily, and we want them to be able to find what we're doing. And Dave did a great job of explaining those areas that we're going to be focusing on internally, and hope to, you'll see this on our website. We actually started working on the website first. And when we started working with Val Stern, this local marketing firm, they're fabulous. They're sort of helping us out. They got so excited about our website project that they said, let us help you with this logo. We just want to work on this with you. We want to help you out. They're a really great company. And so they're helping us, the logo. They're throwing in so much of their time on this logo, free of charge, and you'll see the intention behind where we've come with it, and how they've really helped us vision our logo. So I also, Skip, do you want to unmute yourself too, so just so you can jump in as well? Last thing I want to do is go on and on and on, and I don't want anybody to think they can't interrupt me. Caroline Allen has been working extremely closely with Skip and myself on this project, and Father Dave and the rest of the team. Caroline too, if there's anything that I'm missing, please jump in. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen in a second, but I just did want to make sure that you all know that we are recording this part ever since Father Dave started talking. We went ahead and started recording this coffee talk so that we can share this with people that weren't able to join us today. And also, I'm not sure if there's anybody who's calling in and not seeing what we're sharing, but I am going to share my screen. We do have some people that are calling. So the question you're probably having is, how am I going to see this logo that you're talking about? So if you'll do us a favor, I think maybe Claire can tell me who's calling, but if we're unsure about that, if you'll drop us an email or a phone call, my email is just Mandy with a Y at saint-john.org. Drop me an email. I'll make sure that I get you a copy of what we're sharing today so that you can see it, because that would be really frustrating to be hearing this and not be able to see what we're doing. So anyway, with no further ado, let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and I will, let's see here. Sorry, y'all. I've shared it several times, but now I think you'll be able to see me as well as I'm talking. So let me know if can you still see me? Also? Okay. Okay. I won't make funny faces as I'm doing this then. Well, just wanted to make sure you saw what I was seeing. Okay, great. So we're wanting to just go through kind of how we got to this. We talked about wanting to do a new website. We talked about doing a logo, because now's a great time, because we're doing all this on campus, and what better time than to share, what St. John's is all about. Also, we realized that at St. John's, we have a lot of, we are very clear that we're an Episcopal church. We know that, and we share that with the community, and we're proud of that. But it does seem that when you really look around, that was one of the first things we did when we started working on this, and thought, okay, what do we want to do? Can we go ahead and incorporate what we have? And we thought, wow, what we have is the Episcopal shield. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's fabulous. We love that we are an Episcopal church, but that's also in our name. So we looked, and yeah, it's everywhere. Something that Skip has said, and I really love it. Skip, if you'll take yourself off mute and share your anecdote here, because this to me is a good way to
Yeah,
understand it.
one of the things that we talked about is that if you're we'll use the Buccaneers here on the bottom left, you don't have the NFL shield at midfield. You have your team's logo at midfield, right? And so we have had, the NFL logo, the Episcopal Church logo, as our kind of logo at midfield, and per Dave's direction and the consensus of the group, it was really time to reestablish our brand as St. John's here in Tallahassee, our team, right? And not necessarily have the Episcopal Church be our only calling card. It's certainly a big part of what we do, and it's not like the shield is going to disappear or anything. But this just kind of shows how we're focusing on our team rather than our conference, our league, our church.
Yeah. Did you see, Cindy Sessions, if you're on, that I put the Jaguars in there for you? I think that's your team, right? If it's not the Jaguars, I'm going to be really embarrassed, because I thought that was yours. But anyway, yeah, we did.
I think
we want
she's
to
a
make
little more of a college fan.
She is. I know. We were
Yeah.
talking NFL though,
That's
get in, and so
one of Bobby Bowden's great jokes is his wife asked him, "Do you love me more than football?" And Bowden says to her, "College or pro?" Anyway, worked a joke in there. You got a little humor in addition to the logo.
So thank you, Skip. Yeah, no, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that we have our something about us, what makes us St. John's. And I think we're really good at, we have a lot of other logos you'll see on screen here that we use for various campaigns, for events, for different plans that we've done. And these tell a story. These tell a story about what we're doing, and what we're trying to accomplish, and even what we're about. You see our buildings, and you see what symbols, and that is so important. And we just when we're out in the community, we want people to know who we are, and especially at St. John's as well. So we went ahead and started looking at how we could come up with a logo. And Bowstern was so instrumental here. They said, one thing you can do is come up with something that's recognizable, that's really recognizable, like the bell tower, or something that's traditional, something that says, a picture. We can incorporate something from your, that says St. John's. Also, you could, and so we can do something with the bell tower. You could also do something like a new icon. A lot of these you'll see various churches around town have something that's representative of religion, or something that they stand for. It's a little bit more abstract. We didn't know if that was the way that we wanted to go. We were pretty sure that that's not what we wanted to do, but we did want to come up with something that sort of meshed those together. This is the third thing, the hybrid in the middle. So we said, how can we take something that talks about our tradition and who we are, and meshes it with sharing what we want to do. And that's what Dave talked about a little bit, is kind of what's behind our thinking and where we're going. So no further ado, we came up with our logo here that incorporates all of this. It still contains our name, St. John's Episcopal Church, but it has this new icon that combines several things from our history, our tradition, and our building, and then also a lot behind it. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this for you. Actually, here's first another look at some other ways that this logo can be used sort of against a dark background or reversed out. We'll go into that a little bit more in a second. But, and also how it works and how it complements some of the existing signage, and that incorporates the shield. They work well together, and they even have the same font there. So we'll be able to use them together. But here's a little bit more about the look. So the arch shape is found throughout the church. You can see the arch shape around the outside of this icon part of our logo. And when we started looking around, it was really interesting to see how often this shape shows up. You'll find yourself when we're back in our space looking and saying, oh, there it is again. There it is again. Boy, it's above the altar. Oh, it's in the, our doorways. It's so interesting that we saw this so much. And it's kind of like the walls in your house. You don't realize or remember what color they are, or you don't remember something that's been in your house forever until somebody comes in and asks you about it. And you say, oh yeah, you're right. I do see that everywhere. So the other thing is I'm going to skip down to the one in the middle on the right, sort of this circle or flower design that is in the rose window above the altar. We pulled that, that's that one in the upper left-hand corner there, as well as sort of this quadrifoil and the various other shapes, the circular shapes, for that, and pulled them together. The other pieces, going down from the arch shape found throughout the church, if we go around clockwise, the horizontal and vertical amateurs represent a cross, as Father Dave said, and the arch points represent the Holy Trinity. The circle and flower design is based on the window above the altar. We kept the red and the blue kind of to, as a nod to the Episcopal Church, and the fact that we're going to be using this in complement, with our other signage that we have on campus. We have that circular container that's divided into the 4 segments that Father Dave mentioned. Now, that's not going to be apparent to people right away when they see it, but we know, and you're going to start hearing more about this. Our website, the way it's going to be organized, is going to be in, explore, learn, serve, center. Those 4 areas are where we're going. And as Father Dave said, it's not a path. It's a circle, because somebody might come in and they might, be more focused at that point on centering themselves. So anyway, it's round, those 4 parts. And then finally, the stained glass speaks to the history of the congregation and the physical architecture. So we have, we do have a lot of history at St. John's. One of the things we say so often, is the fact that, established in 1829. And we want to make it clear that, yes, we can use that on our website. We can use that in things that we are writing and as we share, our story in the community. But the fact that our logo should go ahead and speak to the history without having to say exactly when we were established, because we can, it should speak for itself. Anyway, this is just a little slide that shows that the various fonts and different, things we went through to get to where we are. I'm going to pop back to this for a second so that I can say.
Hey, Mandy, I don't want to miss though on the slide back that there was some provenance, at least in my mind, and that that Val Stern settled on the font that is the current font in our signage. That was total happenstance. We didn't realize that was going to happen, but you can see the current sign and our font are the same thing. So that was seemed a little bit providential.
It was, yeah. No, Caroline and Skip and I, we, as we were going through, we're looking at all these fonts, and Caroline and I had the list, and we're Xing them out and which ones we liked, and then we realized we chose the one that was on our sign. So I think that just means that, we know who we are, and we know what makes us comfortable at St. John's and what we like, and we're not trying to get rid of that. I know in the past, there's been changes for, other reasons. We don't want to change anything that we are, we love who we are. So we want to keep that and expand upon that. So I'm going to go ahead. We'll be able to go back to that in a minute. I want to keep us going though. How does this tie into sort of some of the other branches at St. John's? And we have our bookstore, and we have the foundation, St. John's Foundation, and we have the cafe. And as you can see, sort of how I talked in the beginning about, we are all Episcopal Shield, for our church. We are all over the place when it comes to our other portions of our church, the things that people really know about us. I mean, we have tons of people come into the cafe on a regular basis. I know not right now, we're not able to host everybody, but the bookstore and the cafe are ways that people come and find St. John's, find out about us. And they don't really have the same look. as our church logo. The foundation hasn't really had a logo, but we wanted to come up with a way that these could all tie together. So this is how the bookstore will kind of use the same branding, the foundation, and then the cafe. And we're really excited about these because and I'll go more into the cafe in a minute, but this is tying everything under one umbrella and making it really cohesive so that there's no question of what's part of St. John's. We are all one. And we're not all of these different pieces that are just kind of working in tandem. We're all working together. So a little bit more about the cafe, because we're really excited about this. The cafe logo is one that's been around for a long time, I think since the cafe got started 25 years ago, or 20 years ago, excuse me. Might be 22 now. We wanted to keep various parts of it. Let me go to the next slide here. That was just an example of how the logo can be used. But here is sort of that same intention behind the cafe logo. We kept the green to kind of keep that link to the logo that we are familiar with, and the green that we see around on our aprons and our hats and everything. Keep going clockwise. We reordered the elements, the name, to make it. We used to be, if you'll remember, the logo Lively Cafe, and then at St. John's below it. Well, this is the St. John's Lively Cafe. The cafe is part of St. John's Episcopal Church. When you're coming to the cafe, you're coming to St. John's. And Skip has told me that he recently was chatting with somebody, and they were saying something. Oh, I was over at the Lively Cafe, or that event was held at the Lively Cafe. A lot of people say things are, at the cafe, but don't necessarily understand or are clear that, that they're at St. John's. And we want to make it very clear that St. John's is the heart of the cafe. And I skipped a step there, but the rose window from the church logo is a visual link to St. John's and represents that the church is at the heart of the cafe. And then, of course, we just kept the same font that is from our new logo. So let's see, let me go back to that one just to show you those again, kind of how these will be reversed out. Yeah, I think that is, it's really striking that we can take this logo and use it in various ways. We've worked with Fran, and then Peggy Bilby is the chair for the cafe this year, and we're working with them on all the different ways that the logo can be used on our aprons and things as we reorder those, or as we get to the point where we're reordering more cups. We're being very intentional about not coming up with something that will be problematic when we get to the point where we need to order new signage or whatever. So we're thinking about all of that. I do have one other thing here that we're still working on. So I wasn't sure if we should throw it in here yet, but we just wanted to show you how this will be used sort of around campus and around the our different ministries. We have so many different ministries. We have so many different things that we're doing. And like Dave was talking about with those 4 areas, we want to be clear. You might hear us say, this is a wonderful ministry or opportunity if you're looking for some way to center, or this is something that you might like to look into if you're looking to serve in the community. Similarly, we want to, when you look at something, we want you to know this is a pastoral care, this is a ministry or a project from the pastoral care ministry or the music ministry. And so everybody's these colors are not set. The ones on the side, the youth ministry, music, and children's, we're still working through those and different ways that we will use this in our various ministry communication. But that is, in a nutshell, go back to our logo there. We're really excited about it, and I would love to open it up for questions to see what questions, what I haven't covered, and then also see what questions you have just in general about how this will be used and where we go from here. So Skip, Caroline, Dave, did I miss anything that right off the bat before we open it up to the peanut gallery? Okay. All right, great. Does anybody have anything? Oh, I'm seeing people say that they like it. That's good. In the chat, I don't know if some of you might not be familiar with the chat, but I'm hearing that people think it represents the center of St. John's, and that makes us feel good. Thank you. We worked really hard on this. We've been working on it for a while too. Just so you know, started this project probably last summer, and with the the website and the logo, and then kind of, life happens. We have so much going on at St. John's that we are trying to keep, juggle all those balls. And then of course everything was thrown for a loop in March, in February, when all of this happened. So we had to come back to it, but we were able to get it in front of the vestry, and we got the approval. Yes, I see Marianne has her hand up, and also I had a question on the chat, but Marianne, since you're unmuted, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I love it. I completely love it. I was reminded yesterday when I went to Trader Joe's for the first time, and they have these blue signs with black writing on it, I think, that is very difficult for those of us of a certain age whose vision is not what it used to be, unless, like you mentioned, you have a deep enough background color to support, whatever printing you have. And I know, I'm happy to hear that y'all are mindful of that, because anything on a any white on a light background is murder, or dark on a dark brown is murder on these old eyes anyway. But it's absolutely gorgeous. And before we go, Claire Dodd, how do I get in touch with you? You can text me or whatever. I don't know how to do it. I'm sorry. I went to the church website and looked, and so just.
Claire hasn't put her picture on the website. I've been telling her to put, or maybe she did. No, she rolled her eyes. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're balancing.
Let me know. I have a couple of questions.
We'll make sure she gets in touch with you, Marianne. Yeah,
Marianne,
we're balancing.
I will email you right after this. No worries.
Okay, thanks.
Right now we're balancing using our current website for all that's happening with all of these online offerings and the way to reach you and keep you all connected, with trying to get our new website going too. So thanks for being patient with us, because the old website is not mobile friendly. You have to pinch and zoom on your phone, and so we know that it's challenging, and thanks for being patient as we get to the point where we can get to, launch our new one. One of the other questions I saw was, are we going to be using the established in 1829 anywhere? That's not going to be on our logo, but as I mentioned, we're going to use that line, just like we say, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, St. John's welcomes you. That's a phrase that we use throughout so much of our communications. We use it when we talk in our sermons. People know that about St. John's. We're going to be very honest about, we're going to be sharing our history more on the website than much more than it is right now. There's not a lot of historical information about St. John's on our website, but we are working with our cemetery committee. We're working with our people who are so familiar with the St. John's history to make sure that is represented on the website. And we're going to be sharing that story too, and talking about it. Dave, was your hand up, or did you? No. Okay, Catherine had something to say.
I just want to speak to it. You mentioned it before, but I think this is really important to bring up, is that what Bow Stern has helped us understand better is the visual storytelling of a logo. It needs to tell that story that we are a historic church visually, rather than in cluttering it with print. And that is the power of a logo, as they call it in the business, a mark. That's the power of the mark, is that it suggests all of that in an instant through that visual storytelling. And so they helped us understand that better. But it's a good question. Thank you.
I think the other thing it does, can y'all hear me? Yeah. I think the other thing that logo does, that window is so wonderful. And I thought of it sometimes during the service, almost as a mandala, because it shows the flowering of faith. And it comes from that center that, when I've thought about it, is like a seed. And then it's just a short hop to the mustard seed. that, the worship is the seed and the word is the seed. And then the emphasis we have on centering. And of course, the center is there. So it also does the Christianity to me of the flowering of the Spirit. And of course, a circle is endless. And therefore, a circle is spiritual. The Celts did that. They had the circle on the cross. So it really is a wonderful thing.
We're glad you like it, and we're glad that you're seeing that in the logo. What we wanted to do here, we know when we're at St. John's, sure, we want people to get to us and draw. We want some, whether it's our message, our invitation, our welcome to draw people to St. John's, but we want to also meet the needs of our members, our parishioners. And I think that this sort of gives us it helps us remember who we are and what we're trying to do. And that's important. So thank you, Catherine, for sharing that. The other questions, well, Dave, when he said the mark, it did make me think that we will see this window or the mark used independently sometimes on some of our communications. And we wanted it to be able to stand by itself in some of our internal publications. When we're using it externally, you're going to see that it includes the St. John's Episcopal Church name. And the question about when we're rolling it out. Skip, I haven't let you talk much. You want Skip saying, no, don't let me talk. So we do have our plate full right now. I will be honest, we're trying to do all that we are doing. We've been excited about trying to, find the right time to share this with you so that we can start using this logo. There's nothing stopping us from using this in our communications. But as far as how it will be used, in our publications and on campus, you'll probably see a gradual rollout with that. You start seeing it in some of our digital items, definitely on the website as we get going, and in some of our printed materials. And then, as need be around campus, as we have, signage that's needing replaced, or, signage that needs to be put up for parts of our renovation. That's actually happening right now. Charlie Redding, if you're on here, I am not ignoring your phone call. He has been contacting me because we're trying to get this signage put up near the ramp, and we want to use the new logo, the new branding. So we're going to be doing some things right away, and that's why we like that these work together. So let's see, what else did I cover? Jerry Lindsay had a question about ADA, and that's a good question. I know that Marianne was talking about that some too. I'm not quite sure, to be honest, the exact question about ADA. Are you talking about signage when it comes to that, or for visual? If somebody can clarify that, that would be great. Legibility, Jerry's saying. Okay, yeah, we will make sure, thank you for bringing that up, as we're putting together sort of our package of our toolbox for how to use our logo in all of our materials. We will talk with Val Stern and make sure that we have all the tools that we need to use this properly. And we'll be very conscious about, where we're using it, and so that it is legible and people are able to see who we are. So does that answer your question? I'm sorry if I didn't touch on it. Anybody else? I know there's a few screens here, so I think I'm only seeing one screen of people. Anybody, wave your hands if you have anything else that you bring up. I love that so many of you are sitting outside enjoying this day. It's great. So all right, well, I think I'm not seeing anybody else. Take yourself off mute and flag me down if I'm missing you, but we really appreciate you taking the time to come and listen today and hear what we've been working on. And please let me know. Thank you to everyone who asked questions, and for those who have asked questions along the way and allowed us to pause and think about things. So Roger, you took yourself off. Did you have a question?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. You just want to say hey to everybody.
Yes. Hey, everybody.
Mandy and Skip and Caroline, it's Mary Bird from the vestry. And I just want to tell you, it was so much fun to get a sneak peek a few weeks ago. And I'm thrilled about this launch. I'm so excited for the people of St. John's and for that just to be broadcast to the world. I love it so much. Good work.
Thank you. Oh, actually, on that point, I did want to mention that if you were watching the stream this morning on the service on YouTube, we did have some glitches today. For the first time in so many weeks, we were having some problems. And so I think Facebook was okay, and the website had some issues in the beginning, as did Facebook, but then it leveled out. If you were watching on YouTube, you probably didn't get to hear some things. So at noon, which is just in about 15 minutes, we're going to do the stream again on our website, and it will also go to YouTube. So if you would like to put that on your TV and watch it on your YouTube channel, on your TV, on your smart TV or whatever, you can do that at noon without interruption. Knock on wood.
Thank you for saying that. I hate it when I try to